So this is.
I mean, I'll follow you whatever you do. If you want.
All right.
I mean.
It's pretty.
That means opposed to me leading into something, you know,
Right.
minor third away or something like that.
A minor third, relative minor can do.
Okay.
So what we could do is we could start in C.
Okay.
And we could just like, I don't even know what we could do, but let's come over here.
Okay.
I'm not hitting you. Let's see.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's having less than just kind of connecting so simply.
Yeah. If we were talking to people about this,
Yes.
I know that what happened for me is that a form started, well, I just started playing that.
Yeah.
And then when you started playing, I started looking for a chord progression.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time I came to the A minor,
Yeah.
and then I went down, I realized, oh, I'm not playing. I went down to F natural, and you did something different, and I was like,
F sharp, yeah.
okay,
yeah.
and so I was like, oh, okay.
That was just out of habit in a way. It's
well,
like
no, but it was great because
yeah.
I didn't. Then I started guessing, like, wait a minute, is
Yeah.
that always supposed to be an F sharp? Like,
Yeah.
as if there was an always.
Yeah.
And then I remember it took, and I kept noticing that we kept going, we'd go back to the beginning, that thing that felt good.
Yeah.
Whatever that was, that came
Yeah.
at first. And then we kept trying to find a form, and then finally we found a form. That made sense, you know, then when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's just this, this.
I didn't think of it necessarily as like a form so much as that, like, I heard you go into the A minor. I was thinking, well, you know, okay, she said it's not diatonic, but what if I throw an E7 in there to get to the A minor?
Right.
And you sort of, but you, exactly, I sort of didn't know if you could do that. Then I heard you trying to do something.
Right.
Most of the time, okay, it's like, I can still play the E7 even, you know, do it, because you're leaving it, the third kind of open sometimes.
Right.
But, in the A minor, and then I kept on hitting the F sharp and saying, oh shit, this is like not what's good. This is an older progression sort of.
Well, I want to hear it though.
Yeah.
Oh, so that would be like.
Yeah, or
so
you go to the F or not go to the F.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
So I think what my students would ask about is like, how would you even know that there was how would you even have something that you would be wondering, is it this or that?
Okay, that's a great question. So, okay, so the whole vibe of the thing is I was hearing like I almost felt like guilty we were too happy.
Right, it was happy. I love that about
it. Me too, but I was saying it's like so happy and so lyrical. It's kind of what I do all the time. I'm supposed to hear to sort of like add more depth to my playing.
Okay, we can do that next.
Yeah, but it's like, that's sort of like bullshit. That's all like, I'm a happy person. Why shouldn't I be able to sort of play happy? If they don't like it, find someone depressed to play the music for you.
Well, that's interesting though, but
when
I started out, I mean, I think that actually is a happy, that's happy.
Yeah.
But why?
It's the sixth. Yeah, and it's very major, very very you know, it's interesting. So other things, so I'd say like harmonically, I wasn't thinking that much harmonically, but let's say you'll put in sus chords there a lot. Probably without even realizing there's sus chords to think about. It's just a natural thing to play in the harp.
You mean like this?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, so you know, I don't really, from my playing, I'm very knowledgeable about theory. I've got good ears in terms of chords. I don't really sort of recognize sus chords as being anything other than open or open. You know, anything that's being sort of like dominant. It just sort of seems like it's like a sound. So there's, to my mind, we're going from that really, let's say, happy sound, for lack of a better word, positive to a sound that's like neutral, which is what the sus is. Just which way are we going to go from there when you play that chord? So most of the time I figure, you know, because I can go to the minor right from there if you want to. Yep, or you can go from the sus to the A minor.
What did you, to the what?
Or to the A minor even. To the A minor. So, yeah,
so
exactly.
This is, sorry. So
this,
you were talking about from the E, from an E sus.
No, from the,
G
what
sus?
key we in?
We're in the key of C.
Yeah, from the G sus, yeah. To the A minor. To the A minor. That's
Isn't this an A minor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You mean?
No, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
From what? From the G sus to what?
Yeah, to the A minor, yes.
Okay. What would happen? Okay, I went to the E minor, but okay.
Exactly, yeah. As opposed to going back to the major.
Back to the C.
So it's like,
So you think it's easier to go from a G sus to A minor?
Oh, no, not at all, no.
Than from a G7?
Not at all.
Interesting.
Even I'm just saying is the G sus is very like open from my standpoint. I don't really.
Well, no, you're right. It actually just from a vocabulary standpoint. If I say G sus, it is a more open thing than if I say.
Sure. Yeah.
G7 flat 9.
Yeah. Oh, definitely more open. Yeah. That directs me somewhere. I sort of kind of quote unquote have to go with where you're going.
Kind of, if I go,
or it makes it, whatever I go, it makes it more exact, you know.
It makes it more exact?
Yeah, no, I have to be a little more precise about it.
Wow.
It doesn't mean it's like, so, whereas the sus is just like, oh, this is great, it's just a bunch of notes in
It is
C.
kind of a bunch of notes, right.
Yeah. And it can be a G sus, it can be like a D sus, it almost doesn't matter what sus it is, if it's just a button. If it's just a button, but again, on the harp, it just sounds really cool notes in C that like sort of like that. So that sort of allowed me to kind of like either sort of make the happiness a little bit more, a little bit less kind of like in your face, sort of like maybe more, and put a little bit of ambiguity in there.
Into the happiness?
Yeah, which made me feel like, because I feel like this can't just be like, happiness could be sing-songiness like really easily, you know, and it's like, I actually don't even want to dance that much, it felt like it's like, since we're videos, we should have a little more.
All right, let me just see, okay, that's videotaping, that's video, okay, good, it looks like it is videotaping. All right,
have
so,
a little more, you know, but
you're just going to have more veritas, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even just a
okay,
bit,
so let's see if we can do that.
Okay. I thought I just did it. Okay, let's do.
You think?
No, but let's make it more veritasi. Okay.
Okay, so
I'll play very differently.
Okay, you're gonna play differently. Would I still do like a bossa, or should I? Okay.
You can do it either way. I mean, from my standpoint, if I kind of layer less happiness on top of it, it can have like the gravitas we were seeking.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna keep basically the same.
Yeah, let's see what happens with it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hmm.
So take that, you deep thinkers.
Well, I immediately had to have an A flat.
Absolutely, and it really totally changed it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. You introduced that and said, really, she's got the note. How long can she hold that note for without having to like get rid of it to play some
I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
I wondered, and
But totally made a difference. Yeah. So what I did differently.
I was too scared to leave it,
but
it would have been really interesting if, to do the progression.
Well, it's a little bit like a child is born. That one, you know that too.
I thought about that too. Yeah, I did think of that.
Yeah.
Is that the? Oh, is that?
It's got that chord. Yeah, exactly. And then it goes to the. And then it goes to the M. Yeah, so it's kind of like. Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. It's so interesting, except that's a D7, I think, in the real. Yeah, but it sounds so much more in keeping with everything else. But it's Sure.
Second part. Okay,
well,
so
it's a little bit different the first.
Yeah. So what is the second part?
Sorry. That's right. Yeah. That's the yeah. Like it's the B seven for just a second.
Yeah, I probably have to. So the chords in the second part. It just goes to F.
F minor.
Yeah. Okay. Well. So again, the second part.
Yeah. Sorry, that is F major, F minor.
And then
yeah.
F major 7, and then major da.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
If I can do that. And this is one I don't know. I think I'd have to get the book to get it.
Because
I think I have to get the book.
faster.
Yeah. But that's really beautiful. It's
But so getting back to what we did, so I started to make it dark. I like sort of like cut back on the melody, so made the melody more spread out.
Oh, when
less
you
that's why I made
it.
it plain melody before, less melodic, less up and down lines, more kind of contained. So it didn't, so rather than going the happy thing, unhappy. Darker, just
Also, you were in the. Isn't that the Shalomó?
Very good. Yeah. But I was in the Shalomó before too. But
really?
But I was throwing some notes which I knew would probably clash, like the B flat. But it worked. I said, well, okay, I'm going to throw in the B flat. I'm going to throw in the D flat and see if that works. So play some. I'm going to try to use both of them.
Okay. Are we going to play our gravitas moment?
Yeah.
I might not get it all, but okay.
Not really. It has something
what note was that?
The B flat to the A flat.
Okay.
But you don't have to hit it. It's the
But it would be interesting. It's just interesting to think about as a chord to play it.
Then I threw in the D flat. Also play it for seconds. So my thing is like, so the Clash is
this is so cool though.
Ready to shoot me?
Right.
It's like arrest me. It's like so some Clashes are really nice.
I know, I really like this. Circus.
Pretty amazing. It's like, I think of like students who would have like, well, or most students like, what would you play? How do you know what's happening next? What do you know what to do? Are you scared of making wrong? Everyone's like so scared of playing.
And I was,
scared of playing wrong
I was
and
too.
stuff.
And I was like, oh my god, I don't know what key I'm in. I don't know where. And then at a point I thought, okay, forget about that. What if I did all the gestures that I would normally do if I knew what key I was in?
Yeah.
And just see what would happen and like let go of it.
I mean, the only time I was in a key, really specifically, when I was in E minor, and I think you were playing an A minor. You were in E minor.
Right, I was in E. For a little while, I was actually in E minor.
And I stayed there for quite a while.
Right.
But as I say, in a key, I mean, overall, I'm still in C in my mind. Basically C, A minor-ish. And all the other stuff is just kind of like add-ons. So I'd throw stuff against it. Well, once I got to the point, once we've been playing for like that thing on hold went off. Let's say what's the fourth or fifth minute? No, let's say everything.
Oh,
the whole bit. If we went into fourth or fifth minute, I'm thinking, well, again, why don't I just throw in some stuff like stretch it a little bit harmonically and just see what, exactly.
That's so interesting how we get Beethoven talked about the tyranny of the bar line, but I'm thinking about the tyranny of like you got to play the right note. And one of the things I realized in the middle of this is like somehow we're following each other's gesture of music. There's some gesture or vocabulary that's making sense to us.
Yeah.
And I don't know what. Like I know I don't know what I was playing. That meant something. I wasn't sure what it meant.
Well, so in my mind, I'm thinking, I mean, I can go with you, I can go against you. I wasn't thinking it analytically, but I was thinking like, it was like, I mean, well, also music refers to like other things. I'm thinking like Stravinsky at some point.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like when you do that, like a Russian march or something like that, which can also like, oh, this is cool, Stravinsky can do this. I mean, obviously,
Right.
It's like a very poor man's imitation of another poor man's imitation of Stravinsky.
Poor woman's imitation of a poor
right.
Right.
Well, you were, I was me who was thinking Stravinsky. But just so which means all of a sudden I can layer a lot more stuff. I have a context that I sort of popped into my mind. So, I can do this. It's in other words, I'm not ever doing a blues, but this is not a blues, or this is not a folk song, or this is not a jazz tune. This is kind of like can go wherever I want it to go. And like the clarinet is like fortunately very adaptable, orchestral instrument. The harp suggests so many different things. It's like it can be like a string section doing that. It can be a harp doing. It can be like anything.
It could be brass doing it.
Yeah, but the point is, it's like these are two sort of like fairly. It had like almost like a klezmer thing to it a little bit,
that's
old world, that's more the rhythm part of it. But, so, but I mean, when you sort of like
I see.
Notes,
so you actually could have gone. I don't know what the harmony. I don't know what I was playing, but you could have gone into a absolute klezmer thing from that.
Well, that was the E minor.
Okay. It
felt like this is kind of silly after all.
Right.
You weren't really doing that, but just all the.
Well, yes, I was doing a circus.
The circus works for me.
So I was ready for the elephants.
Well, and then so this is what I was thinking. So the part that's sort of being videoed is sort of like a tutorial, whatever it is. I was thinking, well, people should know that like playing like interactively with someone doesn't always mean like imitating.
Right.
Sometimes that's the most. I'll play. You go. I go.
Right.
Which is fine. It's sort of much. It can be so much more interesting and developed than that. So.
Right, and one of the things I noticed when I was so we might want to talk about what are some of the other things that we were thinking, even if I would have to pull into my But I do know there was one point where I was really interested in my technique.
Yes.
There was something I was doing technically, and then I realized, wait a minute, now I'm not listening to him. Because I was like, I wonder if that's what happens to people when we're interested in a technique we're doing, then we stop.
That's often sort of a pick. Well, fortunately, I love what you're doing, so I just went with it.
Okay, right.
So it's like, but you see people who are sort of so involved in their own playing. Guitarists are often sort of like this. They're so involved in their own playing, they sort of turn with everybody else and sort of lose that whole sense of like what could be happening.
Right.
This is even in like form music and songs and stuff like that. They sort of get involved in like I'm doing this. This is because the guitar often is kind of like a game. Like I can do that. And, it's like So I everywhere you. I mean, since
so let's talk about some of the things we did, like some of the conventions. So some of the conventions for me were. When I wasn't clear what harmony I had available to me. So that's sort of an accompanimental convention. I was nervous because I didn't know what string. So this only has 7 strings per octave, and if you shift it, if I have E flats, then they're E flat. And if I haven't played it all my life, so I be like, I don't know how to. And I was like, it didn't matter. But still, that convention. Even if it had gone up a step, there was something conventional about that. It said this went to a different phrase. So what did it say?
So it said, well, okay, use the term circus. I can really sort of more like kind of like some of it felt kind of Kurt Weill-ish, like theater music.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know if that's specific, but
a
little
so
bit
that
sort
almost
of the
sounds
same.
like what is it? Jenny.
The
song from Kurt Weill.
Three-Penny Opera.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So and also more, not specific. I mean, I did think specifically Kurt Weill, but also the whole sort of like musical, theatrical, dramatic sort of like context of music, which is great, because that's what you're saying of something that like you're doing it because you're creating a context or a reference for me or the audience to listen to. If we didn't care what anybody sort of, if there was no context or sort of like way to communicate, then we just go. It's kind of fun for me to do that, but no one's gonna like.
Right, it's just sort of physically fun. Well, I think a lot of my students are wondering, what are you talking about? What is the context? Like, how do we do that? Because I think for them, and we keep talking about this. We keep talking about the difference between notes and gestures. Because there are gestures that we're doing.
Right. So the gesture would be there are general things that create gestures, like playing in time.
Okay.
Right. playing within a harmonic context.
Okay.
These are all gestures.
Okay, so that gave predictability.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so the gesture gives predictability.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, and if you do one gesture long enough,
right,
maybe it warrants a gesture that's unpredictable. In other words, not playing in time or breaking up. If you're going ba 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 ba, like eighth note E, sort of
right,
ba 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 ba. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, I can go da 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 right with you. Keep doing it all.
I'll just keep doing the same thing.
Okay, and I've gotten tired of it, used up all my ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm being weird. By design. That's my next gesture.
Then I might copy you.
You may, you can have an option to do it or not, but sometimes the weirdness is better if you stay straight. And I do something like that. But not necessarily, both of them work.
Okay, and then another thing that I'm always saying to them is keep everything the same, change one thing. So if I was going to change one thing, I could change my bass notes, or I could change where I'm playing it. I could do the gestures the same, or
that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. And so then I'd sometimes, then when you did the more like percussive, like syncopated stuff, the da 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 da, So to me, that's kind of like 20th century sort of.
But and then I'm listening to your little tiny phrases. Okay. And what's the
like the arc of
what's the arc of each little tiny hook?
So now I'm thinking, actually sometimes I'm thinking as opposed to feeling.
Wait a minute, I think I don't know if that light is making. No, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So I'm thinking like, okay, this can get to be kind of like, for lack of a better word, sort of like infantile.
Right.
You know,
really?
for too long. Or so what if I did something like really opposite to that?
Okay.
Like infantile in terms of music, I'm playing on top of you and sort of using your thing as a as a sort of foundation, which I can sort of lay this other whole other thing on. So I don't know what you'd call that gesture, but it's sort of, to me, it just makes total sense to again, sort of, it's kind of bizarre to have.
I would think it's almost like if you're dancing and then you're just like up and then you're just like fly. Like if it was a dance, you'd like up in the air and then you're just like flying.
Kind of, yeah, or the kind, yeah,
or like
sort of,
you're like over the
it's sort of floating over the what else, but also floating is sort of like a sort of bizarre way because the notes I'm choosing are sort of by design, kind of like taking you out of like, not you, taking one out of an expected harmony, and sort of using notes that sort of subtly clash.
I see. To push, you can
pushing the harmony away because already we sort of dropped sort of form the harmonica. I couldn't tell you what chord you're playing if you're playing a chord or a scale. I couldn't tell you a scale I'm playing, just playing sounds that sort of something that kind of work against that. Then you change your pattern.
And then I tried to make I took a pattern out of that, but then I repeated. Which I was hoping wasn't 4/4. I was hoping it was some angular that would.
That's so interesting. So when you start doing something, do what you did.
I don't know what I did.
Yeah, okay. I started doing the exact same thing. So, well, this is like, I just don't want to kind of go with you like the whole time. So I started playing, making my phrases like, asymmetrical.
Okay, so like we were both almost trying to be hemiolic. So making something that's not in the 4, but it's and
which then, layers over the 4. So,
and then I was like, this is junk. I'm here too long. How can I change my bass note? How can I rechange the foundation of what I'm doing? So what is it called? Recontextualize it. I mean this.
It's a different piece of music now. It's sort of like a little bit, it's changed.
The foundation has changed, right?
So the other thing is like, so you mentioned I've been here too long. That to me is like the most like fundamental things in improvising. Like when do you know you've been something too long or not?
Right.
It's just intuitive.
I know.
It depends on who you're playing with, depends on the type of music, but there's just, you have to develop a sense like that. Because, you know, a big thing I hear is like, the playing's kind of boring. Well, it's not boring if you're engaged with it.
Right.
But as soon as you stop being engaged with it, then you switch to something else. And it just has to feel like, you know, but you've been doing it for years, I've been doing this for years, it's like, I say, maybe it is boring.
Right.
But it's,
I do say to them all the time, and everything I say to them, I'm hoping to hear, which is, don't try to be interesting. Don't try to be interesting. Be interested in what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
And yet there's also conventions that I'm following. Like, I mean, when I chose what's going to be my next note, I'm always going to try a third down. I don't know why.
You're thinking it consciously, or just
if I'm going to choose, if I'm in a nervous situation, or like I'm thinking, oh, I want to sound good. Well, what's the most likely thing that I'm going to like the sound of?
Interesting. Okay.
It's going to be a third down.
Wow. I've like never thought of anything like that in my life. But it's I'm playing a different instrument.
Right.
So
okay. You don't have to redefine the harmony, right?
Well, I do.
So how do you redefine the harmony?
I redefine it. Okay, the simplest was sort of like the most accessible way for understanding is I just put half steps in there. So like sometimes half steps that build the root, half steps that I can play and get out of easily. So play your C chord.
Wow, my C chord.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, in a groove though.
In a groove. What kind of groove? Give me.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I need it.
Okay.
Just tell me.
Do a bossa again.
Okay.
I might have to. Next half step. Stretch the harmony.
How can I do that?
But you know, right. But you should stay on the C for in terms of accompanying the.
Right. I would keep that.
So I'm introducing first the A flat.
So you're talking about recontextualizing in a melodic instrument, purely melodic instrument. And I'm talking about it in two ways: an accompanimental instrument and with bass. Because I always tell my students there's three roles. There's the bass role, the accompaniment role, and the melodic role.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And you switch your anyway. So that's so here I was there. I'm changing the harmonic. But the right hand is staying. The accompaniment is staying the same.
So I forced something and I said, what does this half step sound like? It sounded awful. So it doesn't always work.
And meanwhile, I'm thinking, what would I do to make that one sound?
Well, and I was thinking,
so was it a B flat? Or was it?
Both, B flat and A flat, yeah.
So what? Okay. Maybe I would do it with the big harmonic.
Well, it didn't even sound, not because it was wrong notes, but sort of like the wrong.
Right.
Like not this music. And I was thinking like I want to do something different there. I mean, I did actually kind of want it to work.
Do it again. Push it.
Okay.
Let it sound really good. Let's see what happens. I'm noticing what I'm doing. So so the first thing I tried was, my thought was, I'm in the way of his harmonic changes. That's how I interpreted it. So how can I get out of the way? Because I was really defining. So that I thought, okay, let me get rid of, let me just go down to almost like fifths. But that didn't even work. It started working when I had a chord that was quite undefined. C, G, and A. And then I seemed to be much more open to anything that you wanted to do.
Well, the openness is, and they're both good. Like the openness is good,
But I'm just thinking, like, if I was talking to students about what just happened in my brain. What did I try to? How did I try to fit with? How did I shift so that what you were doing would feel like I was with it? Right,
because actually I didn't even hear. I kept on stretching a little bit, but the way I would ordinarily stretch it, I wasn't doing anything. And the more I stretched a little bit more, maybe you're probably responding to it. And I stretched a little bit more. It always sounded okay to me. It's like, so play your what you ended up doing. Your open
I think it was like this.
So it's a whole thing about sort of developing into it. I sort of put it in there. It all sounded weird. All the notes I played sounded kind of weird to me because they weren't sort of set up. I don't know if you remember when we were doing the last thing, we wanted me to like really land hard on that A flat to B flat. I had to like establish it like long enough even to have it sound bad as opposed to having it sound random. So here's the whole thing. What am I doing different than someone who doesn't know what they're doing?
Okay. And, how are you sounding bad? Right.
Yeah, it's like
how are you doing different? You're doing it with intention.
Exactly, and I sort of am setting up the weird notes by playing sometimes normal notes before them, or sometimes I'm doing the weird, knowing that they're going to be weird and expecting that, and choosing them fairly carefully.
And you can also come off of them.
Yes, I come off absolutely.
It's almost like someone who can.
Well, I was putting minor thirds in there. I was putting E flats in there. So.
But I just wanted to see what it was like.
So.
And the other thing I noticed that I did when I was trying to accommodate is that I would sometimes hit the bass note and then wait to add anything else until I heard what you said. What you did.
That's great. That's a great advice.
Right, and I can't always do it around.
Of course,
So.
But I should say for accompanists out there, melody players, whatever we are, super sensitive to accompaniment. Especially if it's bad. Sometimes you don't want people to imitate you, mimic you. Sometimes you want people to kind of just lay something down that you can work off of. Other times you want much more interplay. But generally, it depends on the person. Sometimes I want interplay being kind of equal. I'm into that. In other words, sometimes I want interplay like you bounce off my ideas. Sometimes I want interplay and me bounce off your ideas. And that. So in a free thing like this, it's more equal. I'm into bouncing off your ideas a lot.
And you're playing in a stylistic style a lot. If you're playing in sort of bebop or
if I'm playing certainly this is particularly talking to like a style. So people accompanists think I should do something interesting. Not really. I don't really care. You do something to stay out of the way mostly. And sometimes accompanists will think I've got this great reharmonization I'll do. Sometimes I like it. Let's say sometimes I won't.
So how do you let them know you don't like it? Do you?
I may give them a subtle look. I may just kind of like, if people know me, if I ignore it or play something different, they'll know I'm doing that by design. So it's like, sometimes when people throw stuff out, and it's like, haha, can you deal with this? Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's just, I mean, they do it with the best intentions, but sometimes you just don't want to play that kind of game. I don't want to like stretch a tune out. I just want to.
So there is a game.
This was with like standards.
Right. So standards and jazz players
and good players
will push you. And I know I got pushed a lot when I first started coming in with my harp, and people would be like, "Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you deal with this? Can you deal with this?"
And sometimes it can be like snippy, but sometimes
it's just to see what's our vocabulary, how far can I push you without you falling apart. Let me ask you something that my students always ask me. What is a vamp? How do you define a vamp?
When someone plays the same, usually chords over and over again, open-ended with no particular specific end. It can be rhythmic and not necessarily kind of chord-based.
Okay, so is this a vamp? Is it an effective vamp? It's all those things you said.
Depends what it sort of sets up.
Okay, all right.
When you first played it, I didn't hear it being a vamp. I had it being it was way too specific.
Okay.
But let's do it. Let's see where it goes. So at that point I wanted to be at that point I wanted to be a song, a tune. I wanted the form to happen. Vamp can conceivably go on like forever.
Okay, so let me come
up. So as a vamp.
Okay. Let me see. Try to take this thing.
Like a vamp should be able to build.
Oh, it should be able to build.
Yeah, like you vamp until something else happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Were you ready for it to stop being a vamp or not?
I was thinking about it all, and I said, okay, how am I indicating that I'm ready to go into this song which does not exist
right,
yet?
Right.
So if it doesn't go long enough, it's just like an intro.
Right.
The thing you played before felt more like an intro.
Okay,
it felt like there was a finite number of times it should happen.
Okay.
Then it just got kind of like too much,
Yeah,
so
okay,
it didn't allow enough openness like a vamp may open.
Okay.
So a vamp can happen as an intro. It can happen as part of a solo. It can happen as like an interlude.
And it can happen as an ending as well.
Yeah.
Right, but I really love that you're saying that. So, and because they just asked me the other day, how is a vamp different than an intro?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, a vamp could be used as an intro, and an intro could be used as a vamp, but there are other characteristics to it.
Vamp has to have like an open-ended feel to it, like that can go, that can build and go in many directions. An intro is much more set. It isn't. You're not supposed to be exploring through an intro. I mean, you're supposed to be.
You're supposed to be setting up.
Yeah.
Unless it's a vamp. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm just a non-vampy intro.
Right. Okay.
A vamp intro allows you to explore a lot more and set something up that may not lead to where the audience, the listener, thinks it's going to lead to. In other words, it could take it in a very different leaning direction. Then when the song actually starts, oh wow, it's sort of surprising. The vamp led me somewhere else. The intro, I mean, should usually really set up the song. Really
okay, so let's take a song. Let's take a song I could play on this harp.
Okay.
Which, I could play the beginning of Blue Bossa, but let's pick something even simpler, like I don't want to play Blue Moon, but what's like really diatonic, like really. So let's just say that. But I won't be able to play the whole thing. And that's and that's swing as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's tell me how I would make a vamp for that.
Okay, just pedal on the G7 sus.
Right, right. And how did I, oh yeah, right. And how did I know that? How did I know that you were doing that?
Because of the way I played looser, I sort of probably nodded to if you were looking.
And you also referred to the bass note.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, so many interesting things happen. So the part where I got to the, yeah, when I got to that part,
well,
I know, but it was great because it worked out like, I don't know if you know, like this, it was like a break.
Oh,
it sort of worked out.
interesting.
So let's do it, for example.
Okay.
Let's do the tune up to that
now
part.
I think, now I think I know the hard
Okay.
part. Okay, wait, the intro again?
No, it's just right on the thing, so I show that one.
1, 2, 3.
Made it to kind of built into part of the arrangement.
Interesting. See, now I would be like, she doesn't know what she's doing.
I know, yeah. Well, I mean, I knew you couldn't find the chord. You told me it would be able to. You said you don't play part of it. So let's do it, and but this time, end more. Don't even look for the chords.
Okay,
just
great.
End like so.
Okay,
it
cool.
seems more like an arrangement.
1, 2, 3.
I blew because I didn't play something that's like, let me play it one more time. I'm going to do something more demonstrative.
Okay. All right, so just leave out like kind of.
Yeah, just we did. Yeah, just.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. I see. So you made a gesture like, hey, I'm taking over.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I made a gesture like, hey, we're coming back in.
Exactly, yeah. That wouldn't have happened if you were played through that with the normal chords.
Right.
It would have seemed like kind of weird or something. So,
wow.
Which brings me to another point. It's like, what I tell my students is that the most important thing for my instrument, but this goes for any instrument, I think, is like knowing what to do, being kind of like an instant arranger.
Right.
Everyone has to have arranging sensibility.
Right.
Where to play, what do I play in different sections. So it's sort of if I play this is a big horn player thing. If I play a part, or people expect if I play a line behind a singer, for example, are people expecting me to repeat the line? Will they sort of are you
setting up expectations?
Yeah. And that's the arranging component. Like everything I do can presumably be a signal to somebody else. Is what to do. On a bigger sense. No, we're not talking about like the small, like interact languages. But let's say, okay, let's do the same tune. Okay. I'm gonna put a little arrangement thing into it.
And I'm gonna do the same thing, or
you're gonna respond to see how much I'm arranging.
Okay.
Well,
Did I respond?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay, so what did I respond to? I responded to your articulation, for sure.
In the field that the rhythmic field the articulation created. Right? You weren't articulating with me, you were playing something that supported my articulation. So it's like, with the funny thing, we probably have very different sets of musical references. So I heard I'm going to do this like sort of like maybe like a 1932 dance band might do. The horns would be doing something.
Right.
You know, just something like that in the middle of the section, and you picked up on, obviously this is not a 1930s dance band, so it wasn't going to be like that.
Right.
You picked on a feel that was supportive of that. Then the next 8 bars. Going to do that probably because I sustained that note and made it louder.
Yep, right. And you right. So because as an accompanist, I want to make whatever you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. It was perfect. It's exactly what I wanted to have happen. And so there's just with the signal, you know.
So my students are going to say, how did you know what to do? And I would say that I was making what I call a poetic translation of what you were doing. So this is a poetic translation.
My students have enough problems just playing in tune. My students have enough problems just playing in tune. This was understanding of poetic translation. But yes, that was perfect. Well put. No, it's like it's like I sort of like dramatic. You know,
yes, that's true.
Like,
and
there's like a narrative going on.
Right.
You know, how long could I stay with just the two of us doing that? It would be so. After all, it'd be like rather sort of kind of cute and interesting. It'd just be so hokey or something.
Right.
So it's like you guessed the narrative correctly. And I presumably fed you a line.
I would say I didn't have any sense of guessing.
Well, no, I mean, you picked right. I said
that you were so clear.
Yeah, so I said guessing the right word. You're absolutely right. You understood the narrative perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Understood the narrative.
And
so
then,
you understood what the other person was saying to you.
Yeah. And then when it happens, the same thing happened on the second half of the tune. Let's do that. But I did a slightly different thing. Yeah,
you also changed the rhythm. It seemed to get very. Anyway, maybe.
Wait a
minute. I would love to get the chords here. So.
Okay.
Okay, so it goes. Whatever. I think I can follow that.
Yeah. Whatever you're doing is close enough. I follow.
Okay, cool.
I may do a different narrative.
Okay, I'm gonna follow anything.
But the bigger point is that like people ask what I do. Well, all we did is play the head pretty much straight, and already has like an interesting thing going on.
True.
Which also means that almost anything we play after that will sound nice because it's contrasting. So
let's go on and see what happens.
So we'll do it. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to do an
actually
intro?
Started that. It did happen with a kind of immediate contrast that you picked up. You started playing more time.
Okay.
Right, as like
all right.
Okay.
So let's
intro or
intro? Yeah.
Okay, let's do an intro this time. We did that before.
Oh, okay. What would an intro be like? Oh, I don't know what that would be like. Okay.
6, 2, 5, 7.